Yes, sir, we are now live.
Okay, just 2 minutes, Vivek. We are starting. That people should join.
Sure.
Okay, I think uh, we are starting program. Okay, so all set. Welcome, Akhil. Welcome, Deepika. Okay, good evening, friends. I welcome all of you for the webinar on COVID-19 and enforcement of contracts. As you are aware, this is the 9th webinar of corporate professional, which we are organizing. And by seeing your overwhelming response and participation, it gives us encouragement to do more and more better and effective program for the corporate world. Today's program is also very apt, and it is apt because the ongoing corona issues and corona crisis, because everyone on this mother earth is affected. It is not only health, but it is affecting wealth also. So health, job, and well-being, all three things are affecting by this corona issue. Conflict of life and livelihood is prominent because every government is thinking whether we should protect life or we should protect the livelihood also. So that conflict is going on, and that's why lockdown 1, 2, 3, 4, and now open up process has started. This issue of livelihood has affected everyone across the globe. And corona is very interestingly is not differentiating any country, any citizen, any religion, any caste, and any creed. It is not differentiating rich and poor. It is not differentiating young and old. It is affecting everybody. When it is affecting so vigorously, then it must be affecting everybody's business and business activities. To discuss this effect and what will be the implication and what will be the consequential on business and the contract, we have invited a very learned speaker, Dr. Akhil Prasad. Akhil is a director in Country Council India and Company Secretary of Boeing India Private Limited. Akhil has a very prominent and very distinguished career. He has worked before Boeing India. He works in Fidelity. Before that, he was in Walt Disney, and before that, he was in General Motors and Electrolux. And earlier, when he started his career from Modi Corp. He is on the board of Boeing Group, various companies. He has worked in various industries, which is in steel, office automation, white goods, computer hardware, media and entertainment, mutual fund, equity, and now aerospace and defense. So he has experience of all types of industry, which will face this type of consequential in this corona. He has not only served, but he has won various awards also. He has various awards as GC Award, Team Power List, GC Power List, Team Power List, and various Legal 500, various awards he has won. He is a visiting faculty of NLU, ISB, Delhi School of Economics, IIT Delhi, MDI, IIM Kanpur, IIM Kashipur, IIM Indore, IIM IT, IIMC, and Jamia Millia, and various colleges across the country. Akhil is a doctor in law. He has done PhD, LLM. He is a fellow member of Institute of Company Secretaries. He has done, he is a non-practicing solicitor of England and Wales. He has done Master in Law from Northwest University, Chicago, certificate in business administration, and recently he has done completed Wharton Advanced Management Program. Akhil is a person, I know him when he started his career from Meerut. He was that time the secretary of Meerut chapter when we started Meerut. And I remember he has done a yeoman service for the students and members of professional company secretary and advocate. I welcome Akhil for this program, and Akhil has a experience, practical exposure on various things. So I welcome Akhil for this program, and we will be definitely benefited by your experience. Then we have Deepika Vijay Sahni. She is a partner in corporate professional, and she heads security and transaction advisory. She has a 25 years experience, and interestingly, Deepika was the first person in our office when we started corporate professional, and she is looking after various transactions. Recently, she concluded the Birla transaction with Anatraj, and she has done lots of work in security law. She has experience in this contract drafting, contract execution, and I think it will be a great for all the participants when she will share her experience relating to various issues of contract. So welcome both of you. The program structure will be like this. I'll give the opening remarks and the introduction. Then Deepika will speak, and then Akhil will share his experience, practical case studies, and then we will have a question answer session. So anybody who has any question, please share with us, write it here on the questions answer, and we will give all the answer. In case there is a shortage of time, we are ensuring that we will send you the answer through email to all of you. So I'm starting with this, my opening remark. Friends, this contract and the predicament and the performance amidst pandemic is a very interesting point. As you are aware, Vivek, next. As you have seen this, United Nations has mentioned that this is the worst crisis humanity has ever faced since World War II. United Nations saying this. OECD saying a global health crisis without precedents in living memories, because nobody has seen what types of thing it has taken in past. We have seen other crises that world has faced: Black Death, 1347, 1351, cholera pandemic, 1817, then 1860, Spanish flu, just 100 years back, 1819 to 1920, then Great Depression in 1929-30, World War II, 39 and 45, SARS, 2000-2003, Swan flu, and Ebola. So all these things we have seen, and that has taken place, and that has created the problem in the entire world. Now this COVID-19 has unfolded into the most severe economic recession in nearly a century. Nobody is realizing, nobody is seen, nobody is thinking that something has happened like this. Entire world is closed, plummeting the economic activities and stressing business globally. So it is not that any business is affecting in India, it is global businesses affected. And this is causing enormous damage to people, health, jobs, and well-being. So everybody is affected in this, and everybody is facing this. Pandemic is impacting manpower, money, and material of business. It is affecting industry, and the industry and then overall economy is also affected in this. The effect of the entire thing is government intervention are resulting in restriction, because government is saying what you import, what you can't export, what you have to open, what you have not to open. Everything is governed by the government, and that's why you are restricted. Indian economy was in troubled water. Pandemic added to the furor. It is not Indian, entire world economy is facing this, but India, it was in a bad shape, and it has taken another bad issues also. economic recovery remain uncertain and would take longer, because earlier we were facing problem and now it will be more problematic. Due to uncertainty and vulnerability, business are restoring to cost cutting. Now every business has to work out the new formula, and the cost cutting is the main point, because you are not earning the way you were earning earlier, because everywhere is a pressure. Benefiting parties would aggressively enforce their right. Now these are the two important points. Now those who will benefiting parties, they will try that how to aggressively enforce their contract, their right, and their commitment which people are doing. And then misuse of the situation to evade contractual obligation will also take place, because so many people will try to misuse this situation, and they will say it's a force measure, it's a impossibility, it's a frustration. They will do it. Now, if you see this, after the effect, I have just jotted down that what types of contract it will take problem and what types of things will come. Next, type of contractual issue dispute that will arise. Now I have just given glimpses to all of you, and the manufacturing contracts, the default or delay in manufacturing based on the order received, default in providing minimum guaranteed order for manufacturing. So dispute between vendor and contractual manufacturer, contract manufacturer versus vendor will take place. Operation and maintenance contract, that will also come. Government, business house, small contractor, consumer versus business, that conflict will create. Construction contract, home buyers versus builders. Sale contract, operating party versus suppliers or seller. Supply contract, that will also take place. Travel or transportation contract, consumer business versus the airlines or shipping industry, that will also come. Hospitality, because cancellation or suspension of minimum guarantee contract will take place. Business versus hotel will take place. Then employment contract, failure to provide wages to and bonus to incentive to salary cut or deferral, employee versus employment. Then failure to be present on duty or abstain or violation of social distance norm at workplace, employer versus employee, that will take place. Investment funding agreement, that will take place. Loan contract, bank declare borrower NPA and borrower demanding waiver of interest, so the dispute between bank and borrowers will take place. Bank guarantee contract, beneficiary and applicant versus beneficiary, that will also take place. And the next is the rent and lease agreement, which we are saying failure to delay in payment of rent, landlord versus tenant versus landlord, will also take place. Mortgage contract, mortgagee versus lender or mortgager versus borrower, that will take place. Insurance companies contract will also be a problem, failure or delay in processing or passing insurance claim, fraudulent claims from insurance companies. So insured versus insurer, that will also come. Human resource supply contract, those who are supplying human resources, beneficiary and supplier, that will also, and migrant worker is also one of the important issue here. Sponsors contract, that is claiming refund of sponsored amount, sponsor versus host will take place. So these are the conflict will take place. These are the dispute. Now, how to strategically tackle this situation? Review the terms of contract, identify safety net, prepare for eventuality, honor contract as far as possible, renegotiate the terms early and amicably, and resolve dispute through ADR. Now, these are all issues which we have to work out, which we have to solve, and both the speaker will discuss this issue and they will talk to you about this part. So thank you very much. This is my initial pointer, which I have told. Now over to Deepika to start your presentation and tell us about what are the contract, force measure, and the frustration of contract, how to handle this, what are the legal part that you can. Deepika.
Thank you, sir, for your kind words and for taking us through the insight of the program. Hello, friends. I hope everybody is doing good and keeping safe. So as we start today's program, this program is very centric to a specific topic related to the contracts, which is force majeure. Now, force majeure till date was majorly known as a boilerplate clause, which had not been deliberated too much during the contract negotiations. Generally, while entering into any contract, parties have rounds of negotiations on various clauses, but force majeure, generally standard clause, we copy pasted and done. But of late, this contract has been is being deliberated a lot. We are saying so many case laws also, and it has suddenly come into limelight. Now, what does a force majeure means? Force majeure, literal meaning is a superior force, and is generally defined as an event or effect that can be neither anticipated nor controlled, especially an unexpected event that prevents someone from doing or completing something that he or she has agreed or officially planned to do. So basically, for an event to be a force majeure event, the key essentials are that the event should be unanticipated, it should be uncontrollable, it should be unexpected, and it should be unforeseeable. Now, some of the events which we generally take as an examples of a force majeure event are like, generally while drafting a clause, we put in what constitute force majeure events, and events like war, riots, fire, flood, pandemic, epidemic, hurricane, typhoon, earthquake, lightning, explosion, all these kind of events can be incorporated as a force majeure event. A force majeure event clause or a force majeure defining clause can be an exclusive clause or an exclusive clause. That means either we list out all the events that will be treated as force majeure, or we put in a general clause that such events like war, riots, flood, etc., or such other events which are beyond control. So it is always advisable to have an exclusive definition, because it is difficult to enlist all kind of events which are constituting force majeure clauses. Like nowadays we are seeing that pandemic or an epidemic is generally not covered as a force majeure event. So your force majeure clause becomes redundant, cannot be used in present situation. Now, what is the significance of your force majeure clauses? What is the purpose of incorporating a force majeure clause? One thing, it safeguards you from future contingency. Like in today's situation where the force majeure clause is present, in which contracts it is present, there is a safety net which is provided for the parties to that contract if they are unable to perform their obligation. Another which is important to understand is that force majeure clause also allocates the responsibilities and the risk for the parties involved. What can be the benefits of force majeure clauses? It limit or waive off your liability for non-performance. If there's a clause and it says that in case of a force majeure event, it will not be treated as a violation of the terms of your contract, it can be done. It provide additional time period or for performance, or put the time on hold. Generally, the contracts are time bound. So when the contracts are time bound and on occurrence of a force majeure event, the running of the time can be stopped, or we can say that the time period, if it's a 1-year contract and force majeure clause, a force majeure event continued for 4 months, so the contract will extend to 16 months instead of 12 months. So that kind of provisions can be there through force majeure clause. What can you seek by virtue of a force majeure clause? Force majeure clause can provide you temporary suspension of your performance obligation, termination of the contract altogether if time is in essence for the particular contract, and also renegotiations of the terms of the contracts. Now, all these things will depend upon how a force majeure clause in your contract is drafted. So it is not that one jacket fits all. It has a specific clause of your agreement has to be seen to understand that what will be applicable in your case. Some of the samples of force majeure clause are as here. either party shall be excused from performance and shall not be in default in respect of any obligation hereunder to the extent that the failure to perform such obligation is due to natural force majeure event. Now, this clause is just general clause which is there in majority of the contracts, and it is waiving of the liability of the party from the performance. In case there is a default because of force majeure event, then it will not be treated as a default on the part of the parties. Another clause can look like any prevention, delay, or stoppage due to a force majeure, notwithstanding anything to the contrary contained in this lease, shall excuse the performance of such party for a period equal to or any such prevention, delay, or stoppage. So now, in this particular kind of contract or clause, the term of the contract is extended by the force majeure event. There's a suspension of the time till when the force majeure event continued. Extension of time. Any failure to perform its obligation under this agreement as a major result of force majeure event, the time for the performance required of the affected party shall be extended for a period equal to the time lost by reason of such delay. So here there's an extension of time. Then comes termination. A party may terminate this agreement upon providing written notice to the other party if other party is affected by a force majeure event which cannot be removed, overcome, or abated within a particular continuous months from the initial date of such force majeure clause. So here the time parties can seek a termination. If there is not a specific provision of termination in the force majeure clause, then you may not seek the termination of the contract. So in all the cases, the specific language of your clause, how your clause is drafted, will have to be seen. On the happening of this COVID-19 and the lockdown, government has come out with various notifications with respect to force majeure. Ministry of Finance has specifically come out with a notification wherein they have provided that COVID-19 is a pandemic and will be treated as a natural calamity. So by virtue of this notification, in the contracts wherein natural calamity is there but as a force majeure event but not pandemic, those contracts can also seek present situation as a FM event and can invoke force majeure clause. Then there was a similar kind of a notification by Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, wherein again COVID-19 situations have been identified as FM event. Ministry of Shipping also has come out with a similar notification, and the Ministry of Shipping has even given exemptions from the demurrage charges, etc., which for the goods and material lying on the ports and could not be picked up because of the transportation issues, etc. Now, another question which comes in mind of each of the party to a contract is whether your contract has a force majeure clause and whether or not COVID-19 will be construed as a force majeure event. Now, as I have shared before in the earlier slides, the government has already identified COVID-19 as a force majeure event. Still, the language of your contract has to be seen very carefully to invoke the force majeure clause and to determine whether the present situation will be likely to be a force majeure event for your situation. Now, if your contract has a force majeure clause, there can be two possible scenarios. A force majeure clause explicitly lays down various force majeure events and contains the term pandemic or epidemic or government order. Or if the force majeure clause is extraordinary clause is drafted in such a way that extraordinary event or circumstances, the reason control of which are beyond the reasonable control of parties, which materially affect the performance of obligation under the contract. So, as I discussed earlier, if the definition in your clause is an inclusive definition, then we have to see whether the terms have been like pandemic natural calamity or epidemic has been expressly provided in the agreement, or if it's always favorable that it is you have a general clause or which allows an exclusive definition to your clause. Another thing which is very important to understand, like I have a force majeure clause in my agreement, so I can go and invoke that clause and ask ask for the avoidance of my performance. The answer is no. There has to be certain very specific ingredients which we have to fulfill before invoking our force majeure clause. We have to review our contract and our rights and obligation under the contract very carefully. It is not only that a force majeure clause has to be seen in isolation. The entire agreement has to be seen, and the rights and obligations have to be, parties have to be seen collectively. We have to take necessary steps to mitigate losses, if possible, attempt performing your obligation under contract. This is a very important point. A force majeure clause can only be invoked by the parties if those parties have made specific, if the parties have made specific attempts to mitigate the losses and to perform its obligations to the extent it is possible. If you cannot just not do your part and say that it's a force majeure event and I will not perform. Performance should be carried out to the extent possible. Undertake communication with other parties such as suppliers, vendors, and customers where significant delays are likely. It is always advisable to open the channel of communication, intimate your vendors, your suppliers, customers in advance that because of this delay, because of this situation, there's a delay which is happening. Check for force majeure clause and review its provision. Must ensure to follow the process as per the agreement. To invoke a force majeure clause, you should make sure that you are complying with the prerequisites of the agreement. In the agreement, we have notices clause, we have how to invoke a particular clause, how the notice has to be served, like the non-performance must directly be due to the occurrence of FM event. All these things have to be ensured. My performance should be, non-performance should be because of the FM event. It should not be that I am in general delay of my performance and I'm saying now the force majeure event is there, so I'm invoking this clause. Notice has to be sent to the opposite party. You should ensure that the mode of sending the notice is as per the agreement. The notice which we provide in the agreement itself, it should be addressed to that. And if there is any kind of a particular format in your agreement that a notice has to be sent in a particular format, should contain certain specific content, then those things have to be complied with. Also, you need to collect and record necessary evidences demonstrating how you were unable to perform its obligation during the force majeure event and the attempts you have made to mitigate the losses and to comply with your performance. Payment, this is also very important. You cannot just waive off your obligation to make payment because of the FM. If you have received a certain service or received, the other party has performed its part of the obligation, then you cannot deny the payment merely because there is an FM event. And these things have been well settled in law, and even lately, Bombay High Court has reaffirmed the same position. There should not be a past defaults or continuing default. So, as I said earlier, if there is a continuing default or a performance cannot be completed because there had been a delay on part of the party early as before the occurrence of the event, or if a party is at a default to do their part of the obligation before the occurrence of the force majeure event, then that default cannot be covered under the force majeure clause, and you have to make sure that the non-performance is within the force majeure event period and because of the force majeure event. Now, we have been talking till now about how a force majeure event can, how a force majeure clause can benefit you or how a party can invoke a force majeure clause. What if you are a counterparty and you want to resist a force majeure clause? What will you do in such situation? So you also need to examine the contract and identify a list of events that qualify as a force majeure. Whether proposed event, like whether a pandemic, epidemic, or natural calamity is covered as a force majeure event in your contract or not. If not so, you can resist the invocation of force majeure clause. Assess if there is an actual link between the non-performance and the claimed force majeure event. So we need to ensure that if I'm saying that I cannot perform this event because of the force majeure has occurred, we need to see that whether because of that event your performance obligation was hindered or not. If not, then the party can easily challenge the invocation of force majeure clause. Ask the opposite party to demonstrate how the performance of its obligation has been rendered physically or legally impossible due to the FM event. But so whether the performance is rendered impossible because of the FM event, whether the same is temporary or it is permanent. So if you are unable to perform a certain action under your contract for a temporary period, and it can be performed post the force majeure event is over, then you cannot invoke your FM clause. Check for past default or continuing default of the party, as we have already discussed. Ask them to provide regular updates regarding its efforts to resume performance and mitigate the impact of non-performance. It is very important that you also have your documentation part with you, and you have a regular communication with the other party. Consider negotiating a written amendment to the contract to reflect a commercially sensible resolution. It is always beneficial that before you invoke any clause or you get into the dispute, that you consider negotiating and having an early dialogue with the counterparty. Because if a contract is breached, or it is if a dispute resolution clauses have to be invoked, then both the parties may suffer on both sides. So it's always better that both the parties enter into an early negotiation and may renegotiate your contracts. Determine if performance is possible through alternate availables. This is also very important to ensure that force majeure clause should not be invoked. That if the counterparty can perform its obligations through alternate ways. Say if there was a transportation of a product which has to be done, and the route through which the transportation was to be done was blocked, then parties can always use an alternate route. Or in case the counterparty is sourcing material from one vendor and that vendor is unable to supply, then the products can be sourced from the other vendors. So these alternatives we should always keep in mind and check and ensure that if the party has an alternative to make his perform its obligations, then he should do so in such a manner. Another thing which the other party can do is invoke the security which they have. This is also very important way to resist the invocation of force majeure clause by the counterparty. So generally parties have bank guarantees or such other securities, and those can be invoked in such kind of a situation. Now, what if your contract does not have a force majeure clause, or the present event is not covered under the force majeure clause? In such cases where contract agreements do not contain force majeure clause, the common law doctrine of frustration comes to the forefront. It is also covered under Section 56 of the Contract Act. Section 56 of the Contracts Act basically deals with those agreements which is to do an act which is impossible or is void, or contract to do an act afterward becoming impossible or unlawful. A contract to do an act which after the contract is made become impossible, or by reason of some event which the promisor could not prevent, unlawful, become void when the act becomes impossible or unlawful. That is how Section 56 reads. The enforceability of Section 56 was also recently dealt in a landmark judgment of Energy Watchdog versus Central Electricity Regulator Commission, wherein Supreme Court held that if there is an express or implied clause in a contract suitably stipulating force majeure event, it is governed by Chapter 3 dealing with the contingent contract, and more particularly Section 32, that is term of provision which enforcing upon happening of an uncertain future. If a force majeure event occurs outside the contract, it is dealt with by rule of positive law under Section 56 of the Contract Act, which provides that an agreement to do an act impossible in itself is void. So basically, force majeure clause is a civil remedy which is discussed and covered under Section 32 of the Contract Act, which is dealing with the contingencies of making a performance, and frustration is covered under Section 56 of the Indian Contract Act. But to invoke a provision of frustration or Section 56, there are certain prerequisites here also which is well laid principles and which have to be ensured. Like impossibility must be permanent in nature. Intermittent impossibility to do an act cannot be treated as a frustration. Like if I have to do a certain act on a piece of land, say construct a building, and for an intermittent period or intermittent ban by the government, I cannot do that. It does not amount to be frustration. But if it is permanent, if the land is acquired by government for all purposes, and in future also I cannot do that, so my contract do become impossible to perform. Impossibility may be in law or in fact, that is, if I am unable to perform my act because there is a change in law, I can say that my action has become impossible to perform, or if it has become impossible because the subject matter of the contract is destroyed or no longer available. It is impossibility in fact, and I can invoke doctrine of frustration in that case. Contracting party must not be in default. So herein again also I have to prove that the act has become impossible not because of my own default. I cannot seek the prevention of doctrine of frustration or Section 56 to cover up my own defaults. Impossibility must be due to reason beyond control. I should not have the control of that event, and it should be beyond my control. The occurrence of the event should be beyond my control. It should not be self-induced. Impossibility must be unforeseeable. Commercial impossibility or unprofitability cannot be said to be cannot be used for invocation of Section 56. That is to say, I agreed for a contract of a certain value at a certain cost. Now my costs have increased, or that project is no longer profitable to me. I cannot use the doctrine of frustration or Section 56 for that for my own commercial benefits. Refusal by a third party cannot be applied to invoke frustration. Again, I was supposed to perform a contract or I'm obliged to do certain things, and I was relying on third party vendors, and third party vendors refused to perform their part of job. I cannot say that I was impossible to perform because of the third party vendors. I have to arrange other vendors. I have to make good the losses to the other party, but doctrine of frustration or Section 56 cannot be invoked. So going back to the case of Energy Watchdog, which we were discussing, so in this particular matter also, parties were not able to source the coal which they were supposed to do from a particular country, wherein because of the change in law of that country. But in that particular case, court opined that the parties had option to source the material from other countries, and the argument of the party is that sourcing it from the other jurisdiction would increase their cost and make the project unviable to them, was denied by the court. So that is why we say that commercial impossibility or unviability you cannot invoke doctrine of frustration. Whether COVID-19 will attract the provisions of Section 56, as we discussed, pandemic is temporary in nature. So this situation is only limit, we can say it can run to 4 months, 6 months, maximum a year. It's not a permanent situation. So generally speaking, Section 56 cannot be invoked in these kind of situation. However, there can be certain exemptions from this based upon the facts of your case, like in case of distribution of goods, perishable goods, Section 56 can be invoked. So nowadays we are hearing a lot about whether I can avoid payment of my rent and can I invoke Section 56. So rent payment cannot be denied merely because of impossible situations of COVID-19. Contingent contracts and impossible contracts. So Section 32 of the force majeure clause is not defined under the Indian Contract Act, but it seeks its reference from Section 32. Section 32 deals with the enforcement of contracts, which is contingent on happening of a certain event. Contingent contracts to do or not to do anything if uncertain event future happens. So generally in our agreement, we have preconditions or certain covenants that on happening of which only the contract can be culminated. So these are called the contingent contracts, and execution of a contract can only happen when this when the contingency or when the stipulation in your clause is done with. So there's also one of the recent judgment in this respect, which is very clearly distinguishing between the contingent contracts and impossible contracts. In a recent case of NAFED versus Alimenta, the NAFED was under the obligation to supply certain goods, peanuts to Alimenta, which it was not able to do because of the change in government policies. Now, in this particular case, Supreme Court has distinguished that this cannot be a Section 56 or a contract to do something impossible, because the contract in itself had a provision that which envisaged the contingency of happening of a certain contract, that this is only possible when there is an approval of the government, and the approval of the government did not come subsequently. So this was a contingent contract and not impossible contract. So what are the other remedies which are available when you are facing the execution of your contract? First is early dialogue. Initiate early dialogues with the parties to resolve the issues, to see whether what can be done with respect to the present situation. Renegotiate amicably, like if you are having rent issues, if you are not able to pay the rent, eviction cannot be only a solution, because in these present circumstances you will not be able to find a new tenant also. So it is always better to renegotiate the terms, renegotiate the amount of rent, and modify your agreement. Also, before invoking any kind of arbitration or ADR clauses, various other options are also available, like NHAI as on date has set up a committee which is dealing only with respect to disputes arising out of present situations, and they are settling the disputes. So it's always better to settle disputes or any differences at these committee levels to avoid prolonged litigations. Other possible remedy which can be there is to see your contract and see whether you can avail the remedy of injunction. Like in few cases, parties have been able to successfully invoke injunction from the invocation of bank guarantees for an intermittent period only, although. And then there is another option of specific performance. We have to see whether all these remedies will depend upon the case-to-case basis, and whether it is suitable for you based upon your contract. But if that's a possibility, parties can also go in for specific performance by the party invoking a force majeure clause, against the party invoking a force majeure clause. Now, just to give you a flair of what is happening with respect to force majeure clause and what stand government courts are taking recently. So, as I discussed before, payment obligations cannot be denied or cannot be avoided because of force majeure event. In a recent judgment of Standard Retail Private Limited, the petitioner has made a request before the High Court that they should be allowed not to make the payment with respect to the shipments which they received because of force majeure event which has occurred in the country. But High Court very specifically provided that the lockdown declared in the nation would be for a limited period, and the lockdown cannot come to the rescue of petitioners so as to relieve them from contractual obligation of making payments. Another is condition of lockdown, whether the present situation is in the nature of force majeure at all or not. This was discussed in the Halliburton Offshore Services versus Vedanta Limited. Now, in this particular case, petitioner has sought interim protection from the invocation of the bank guarantee. Now, this is a very interesting case to observe, because bank guarantees generally court does not allow give any relief from invoking of the bank guarantees. But for an intermittent period, in the interim order, court allowed the petitioner and gave an injunction from the invocation of bank guarantee. But subsequently, in this particular case, also High Court reversed its earlier ruling and observed that force majeure event does not excuse contractors' non-performance for which the deadline were much before the outbreak itself. So in this particular case, the party was already at default before the initiation of the force majeure event, and they were running on a late schedule, and they did not perform its obligation in a timely manner, and then the force majeure event occurred. So in that case, subsequently, court did allow the invocation of bank guarantee by the parties. So we have to ensure that we are not at a fault on our side. Then no relief in payment of rent. So a lot of queries we are receiving these days that whether I can avoid payment of rent. In case of Ramanand and others versus Dr. Girish Soni, Delhi High Court rejected a plea by Khan Market tenants seeking suspension on account of force majeure due to COVID-19 lockdown. The court said that in circumstances such as outbreak of pandemic, in which the tenant or lessee could seek a waiver or non-payment of the monthly amounts under contracts which have a force majeure clause, was governed by Section 32 of the Indian Contract Act. That is, force majeure is covered under Section 32. Impossibility of performance is only temporary, and frustration cannot be invoked in this situation. Court further held that if the tenant wishes to retain the premises, there is no clause giving any respite to the tenant. So if you, in this particular case, since there was no agreement between the parties, so if the tenant wished to continue to retain the premises, they had to pay the rent. That is what court find. Then another interesting number of cases which are coming is with respect to the invocation of pledge, because what has happened is that because of this COVID-19 situation and lockdown, there was a depletion in the values of shares of various companies, which has in turn raise the obligations of the borrowers against the which were against the pledge equities. So in a similar matter, Future Group Wholesale Limited against IDBI Trusteeship Services, they went to court and seek an interim injunction from the invocation of their securities. So the shares were pledged and they were listed at close to INR 350 and fell below 100. And so this severally, their security cover reduced a lot, and therefore lender opted to invoke and sell the pledged share. So Future Group went to the court seeking temporary injunction. The court did granted the temporary injunction in this particular case, but it was only for a limited period, and it observed that considering the present situation of market and COVID-19, ad interim protection should be granted to the plaintiff till the next date of hearing and restrain the lender from selling the shares of the pledged shares. So this was only an intermittent relief which was given by the court. So what is very important to observe here is that courts are taking lenient view with respect to the present condition, but in many of the cases it is only temporary relief which it is giving, and also the case of each of the cases to the facts of each of the case has to be seen very carefully. So friends, I hope you were able to get a basic understanding of force majeure and doctrine of frustration. Now I will hand it back to sir. Sir, you may please take up.
Thank you, Deepika. Thank you very much. Deepika has covered the latest trend, issues, and what are the things happening. So now you can note down your queries. So after the Akhil's presentation, you can discuss. So now I will request Akhil Prashad, Dr. Akhil Prashad, to share his practical experience relating to this issue and enlighten the delegates. Akhil Prashad.
Thank you, Pawan, and thank you, Deepika, for another great opportunity, for giving me this forum to express my views on this very important subject of force majeure. And I really, liked what Deepika mentioned earlier on, that, these essentially were seen by all of us as boiler template clauses. None of us had actually envisaged that, during our practice time, we will be so much concerned about a force majeure event, which because of the, this unique situation of COVID, we have, perhaps we are discussing this subject so actively. And, if you do a Google on COVID, and if you do a combination of COVID and force majeure, you will see so much is being written on this subject, and hundreds and thousands of articles you will see every day that, people think that their performances of the contract may be excused, and the legal department and the lawyers are busy drafting notices to each other to get some kind of a relief, to put the other side on the defense that, I'm not able to perform my obligations. But one thing is very, very fundamental, and we should all understand that wherever you may be in whichever jurisdiction you may be, the premise is that if there is a contract between the parties, it has to be honored. And that is the first and the foremost principle of a contract, that no matter what, comes, once you have entered into a contract, it has to be honored. And now, as Deepika very, very nicely elaborated upon the, very in detail about the subject and the provisions, I'm not going to repeat those. But one thing is very clear, that when we talk about a force majeure clause in the contract versus what is mentioned under the Indian Contract Act, as a legal person, it is our responsibility to understand not only the theory part of it, but also the practical part of it. Am I audible, Pawan? I see somebody say that my voice is not properly coming. Can you hear me okay?
Sir, please
Can you hear
little
me?
bit louder.
Okay. Is it okay now or it's still weak?
Can you just speak louder? I think it is rest is okay.
Okay, give me a second. Let me try and... Is it better now? Can you hear me better now?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah, I said better.
Okay. So what I was saying is that, you know, the legal professionals, it is the first and foremost responsibility of everybody, especially the legal professionals, to clearly understand the aspect, a situation. So let me take you back to 24th of March. 24th of March, what happened on 24th of March? We had the first lockdown one order by the Honorable Prime Minister, which said that, you know, everything is under lockdown. All commercial activities were under lockdown. But if you read it very, very closely, there were certain essential services which were permitted. So essential services in that lockdown one order was mainly related to healthcare, security services, food, grocery, something, you know, which impacts the daily life of people. Those essential services were permitted under the lockdown one order, which on 14th of April, when the second lockdown order was announced, the same 24th March order was ratified by the central government, the Ministry of Home Affairs, that whatever restrictions were imposed in the 24th March order will continue by the 14th of April order, which means only essential services were allowed and nothing beyond the essential services were allowed. And then we had the third lockdown order, which was dated May 1, which had the effective date of 4th of May. So till 4th of May and 25th of March, non-essential services were prohibited. But May 1, there were certain activities where certain business activities were allowed. For example, small shops were allowed because the government realized that it is starting to hit the economy. So they said that small businesses should be allowed to operate. And that was what started with May 1 order, which is the lockdown 3 order. Then subsequently lockdown 4 and lockdown 5 and the fifth order, you know, which we also call as unlock 1 order. You know, pretty much the government of India tried to open everything except for the activities which are within the containment zones. So we moved from a situation on 24th of March where everything was closed down, locked down, except essential services. And coming to the lockdown 5 order or unlock 1, where everything was allowed except for what was under a containment zone. And even under containment zone, essential services were permitted. Also, you know, during these lockdown 1 to lockdown 5 orders, we should appreciate that government was very conversant about the fact whether, so under lockdown 1 and lockdown 2, interstate movement of goods was restricted. And if there has to be an interstate movement of goods, it had to be with the permission of the government. So the e-passes, interstate movement passes, movement between states. You know, those things were those things were allowed. Interstate movement of goods was allowed. So the trade, production, manufacturing activities were slowly and steadily, they were started to move forward. So why I'm telling you this is that it may be known to people that, you know, all these lockdown 1 and lockdown 5 orders, but as a legal professional, we have to be completely in grip with what was the intent of the lockdown order 1 to lockdown order 5, and then beyond that. We have to be completely in control with what was the intent. So today, you know, if your trade partner comes to you and serves you a lockdown or a force majeure notice, what is essential for a legal professional is to advise business whether that particular activity was essential services or not an essential services. So if that particular activity which you are putting subject to a force majeure event was an essential service, so perhaps the force majeure provisions may not apply to you. And that is where, you know, the problem may be. You may be thinking that I was not able to do it because I did not have people. But if the government order tells you that you have to perform certain essential services despite the force majeure event, you may be on a weak wicket in terms of defending your case before the court. And if you are sued, that why you were prevented. So we cannot say, although my services were essential services, but I was still not able to perform. So that will be a very uphill task to prove that what prevented you, even in that situation, not to perform your obligations. So let us also, take some examples. For example, the IT industry, the e-commerce industry, people who can work from home. Examples is the medical facilities, which were all open. So can we take a view that because of this COVID situation, despite the fact that I have a laptop computer, despite the fact that I'm able to connect to my office network and provide service, I was still prevented from doing my work? So that will be a very uphill task for any company to take a defense that, why you were not able to perform your particular service. So as Deepika also said, the frustration of contract is very, very important. And it becomes more important. So we have to analyze between, if you're talking about COVID, that what is COVID? The COVID is a pandemic, but due to pandemic, were we not allowed to operate because of these lockdown 125 orders? And that is where, our assessment has to come forward, that whether we can take a view that we were actually prevented or we were not impacted because of this COVID situation. One thing which is very, very essential today is, it is very easy for somebody to take a view that, I can't perform this contract. But as I said in my opening remark, that it is very, very important that the contract has to be honored. So what we have to do as professionals in our respective organizations is, so our customer may say that they are prevented, they can't make payment to us, which Deepika ji also explained that could not be a line of defense. Our supply chain can say that I can't supply you goods because of this COVID situation. So what do? Do you issue notices to each other, or do you try and resolve a problem where we are all facing together? So from a practical standpoint, at least from a legal standpoint, the way I have seen COVID is, and how my organization has been extremely proactive, is to do a lot of policy shaping with the government. So for instance, we knew that Telangana, we had a lot of suppliers in Karnataka, we have a lot of suppliers in Telangana, we have a lot of suppliers in Maharashtra, the states which are quite actively impacted by COVID. So what should we do with those, partners? For example, MSME, somebody whom we are required to take goods and services from. The operations are impacted. They are not able to devote people, resources to commence production. So, or, even if they are able to get workers on ground, they do not have the sufficient approach with the government, with the ministry, with the state government or the central government. So what do? Do you sit quiet and issue force majeure notices or receive force majeure notices from them? I think what we have to do as professionals is to find a way that the business remains sustainable, the production supply chain remains sustainable. We are still allowed to operate. So the demonstration has to be there by a contracting party that they have taken all steps to ensure that the contract is honored. So if I'm buying some goods and services, say assuming a Maruti Udyog, and Maruti Udyog is say procuring goods and services from say an MSME, a small automobile part manufacturer in Gurgaon. So should Maruti Udyog simply say that since Haryana borders are sealed, but as per government order, they are allowed to operate, allowed to manufacture. So Maruti Udyog should be able to work, with its all OEMs, with all its suppliers, to ensure and then do a policy shaping with the government, the local state government of Haryana and the central government, to make a point that these are essential services, and because of those essential services, the interstate movement of goods should be allowed. Imagine a situation we were under lockdown 1 or lockdown 2, but we have to do something beyond reach out to the government proactively to make our voice heard and make them understand that the goods and services should continue, the exchange, the trade should continue. And thankfully, we have, in my experience, we have seen an excellent support, from the state government of Telangana, the state government of Karnataka, the state government of Maharashtra, in terms of allowing, production, because we have a lot of suppliers in the state who, and then we are an aerospace and defense company. And so the government, state governments and the central governments understood very quickly and, readily that whatever we are doing in India supports a supply chain in the US. For example, the Boeing company procures a lot of goods and services from aerospace manufacturers in India, whether it's Tata, whether it's Mahindra, whether it's L&T. There are a lot of suppliers. And then it is very essential for us to come together in a situation like COVID, not to get embroiled into litigation or sue each other, which is perhaps could be a strategy for some organizations. But we have to ultimately see the spirit of the contract, that no matter what, no matter what situation, the business has to flourish. And we simply can't take shelter of this situation that we will not perform our part, what we are supposed to do. But we have to take that extra step forward in terms of avoiding litigation and then partnering with each other to avoid a situation like a force majeure event or a COVID situation, so that the business sustainability is important. The third important thing which has happened during this COVID, which I would definitely say is something positive that I see out of COVID, despite the fact that COVID has adversely impacted a lot of us, is that the government, the central government and the state government have done so much or generated so much literature, so much standard operating procedures like we have not seen in the past, especially from the Disaster Management Act point of view, which also is one of the important legislation. One is the Epidemic Disease Act, and the second one is the Disaster Management Act, under a combination of which we have seen these lockdown orders and related force majeure. There has been so much SOPs which have been developed, so much law which has been written, that perhaps if we face a similar situation, God forbid, not something like a COVID, but one other problem which is very real for our country is that if you take top 20 cities in the world, the most polluted ones, I think all 20 will be in India. And because of this problem of pollution, now we have a standard operating procedure in place that should there be a NCR problem, that the pollution levels go above 400, 500, which is also an epidemic in my view. Internationally, it is seen so, by the way. Then we have a standard operating procedure in place that the NCR, which is the states around Delhi and the Delhi state itself, all 3 and 4 states together can take a decision that we completely lock down, and we have standard operating procedures in place because of this COVID situation, where, which should be helpful in bringing down the pollution level in that particular area. We also have standard operating procedures that despite this situation, what are the essential services which should continue to operate despite huge pollution issue that we may see in future. So these kind of things, I would say, is a very, very positive takeaway, that this kind of treaties is being developed. And I would encourage, all legal professionals to also read these government orders and keep a complete compendium of these state government and central government orders, because this is going to be the treaties where you will defend your cases before the court against your suppliers. You can if you understand these orders, you will be able very easily able to understand whether or not that particular situation was something which led to a frustration of a contract or did not lead to a frustration of a contract. You will be in a very strong position. The other thing which will develop out of this COVID is, we will have some very interesting judgments. As Deepika ji alluded to, there have been a few judgments already, due to COVID. But given the fact that many companies, manufacturers, service providers will resort to taking benefits under this particular situation, so courts will definitely take a very pragmatic view. And I do think that that pragmatic view will originate from the fact that the contract cannot be frustrated, and it should be honored. And they will be very specific to see what COVID situation, despite the government order, led to a situation where you were prevented to do the performance of your part of the contract. Which frankly, because I have read those central government orders, and that this is what my team does and I do, is to circulate updates the same day when these government orders come. So we very quickly analyze the impact, and then we see that from our organization point of view, what is the impact of this government order, whether it restricts any of our trade partners or their manufacturing capability. So we are thinking not in terms of our own organization. We are also looking at from the point of view of our customer, whether my customer is impacted, whether I am impacted, and whether my supply chain is impacted. Or, if we have large engineers who are based, a large number of engineers who are based in Bangalore and Chennai, then we see whether, this particular government order impacts the operations of our engineers in Bangalore and Chennai, whether or not they are able to perform their services, whether they have the IT equipment which they should have to provide these services online seamlessly. So those are the kind of things which, as a GC, I should do, as a legal person, I should do, to ensure, rather than taking the negative side of the force majeure provisions, that how do I try and not to do, but the focus should be how I should try and do and ensure that my contract is not impacted. Contract may be several. It could be my contract with my employees under the contract of employment. It could be a contract with the suppliers of goods and services. So the fundamental thing that we have to do is to understand through a government order, through a state government order, through a local administration order, and then see the impact on all sides. And when we have done that assessment, understanding the government orders, we will be in a much better situation to be able to go back to the customer or to the counterparty who has served a force majeure notice on us and tell that counterparty that we don't believe that you are impacted by a force majeure event because the government order allows essential services, or it allows manufacturing, or it allows interstate. So those kind of things, there are several things in the government order which are important for us to analyze. So Pawan, this is my, I would say, opening statement, so to say, as you say. And I would be very happy to take up questions. But the fundamental thing I would like to leave, with the with the people who have participated is, as legal professionals, it is our responsibility to ensure that the contracts are honored. We are not there to take a shelter of a force majeure notice and try and not to do our performance of the contract. Because remember, if we are an organization which leaves an impression to to our suppliers or to our customers that, at the very pretext, at any pretext, we shirk away from our responsibility. We are not there to walk that extra mile, to make that extra effort, to honor the contract. The reputation of an organization will also be impacted. So this is a very important consideration which every organization should keep in mind, that if I have to build my organization, I have to walk the extra mile, do something which is beyond. But if I'm an organization which wants to take a shortcut, the reputation may be impacted and nobody would like to do business with me. So that reputation aspect one should keep in mind. So this is how I wanted to present, my side, the practical side of dealing with force majeure situations, Pawan.
Thank you, Akhil. Very nicely presented and giving the practical tips. Now, the most important thing with both the speakers has said, force majeure clause should not be used as a tool to avoid your contract. It should be used when you can't do the extra mile or you can't perform that contract. And no doubt what Akhil is saying, it is also important. You can avoid the contract by using this and using the ploy, but reputation of the organization is also on stake. You have to work hard. You have to build your organization. Now take example of this migrant labor, which in my opinion, we have done a mistake. That time we thought that migrant labor is burden on us. And today what is happening, the industry is suffering because of these labor and their work is not started. So that particular time, if the industry could have worked out some solution, then they could not have faced this problem. So in my opinion, everybody should see this, that how to honor the contract. But if it is not honoring the contract, renegotiate the contract. And the most important thing, that if something is not possible, then you use this force majeure. Friends, both the speaker has given this point and some of them have asked the PPT we will send, and the entire presentation will also be available on YouTube on our website. That link we will send. Now I have received more than 50 questions. So what I'll do, I'll ask these questions from both the speaker. My request is, in case you are agreeing, don't say anything. If you are disagreeing on each other point of view, then you say, because we have to cover these 50 questions during this short period. So be brief on this. So I'm starting with this questions first from Akhil. Can waiver from tax obligation be sought in light of pandemic force majeure? Waiver of tax obligation.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Okay, Deepika, you have any view on this?
It's a statutory obligations. This cannot be waived because of FN.
Okay. Next is Deepika, you have to tell, in case of contract with government, companies where no relief is being provided for COVID-19, can a suit of relief be filed against them?
That will depend upon the contract, how your contract is drafted. If it does have a provision, you can go ahead with filing a suit.
Okay. Next is Akhil. If a leave and license agreement does not contain a force majeure clause, but has a lock-in period clause, then what remedy is available to the licensee to terminate the agreement?
Due to COVID, I think there have already been judgments by some high courts where they are saying that unless there is a provision under the contract which says that due to a pandemic situation, you can reduce rent. Unless there is a remedy in the contract, such termination notices will not be entertained. And so the only remedy, the short answer is you have to pay the balance lock-in rent, and then only you can terminate the contract, in my view. And
Transfer of Property Act will also applicable, Akhil?
Correct.
Yeah. Deepika, is it necessary to include a force majeure clause in all your contract that is not apply by default?
Force majeure cannot be an implied contract. It is an express contract clause. So it has to be there to be invoked. A contract which does not have a force majeure clause can, in that contract, force majeure clause will not apply. Whether to include a force majeure clause or not is upon the wishes of the parties. But if it is there, then only it can be applied.
Akhil, you want to add something?
Pawan, as an abundant caution, I would encourage that this should be included because then you are leaving it to the interpretation of the court and to a particular situation. So as a good legal drafting, I would definitely encourage it should be included.
But the problem is that the drafting, you are talking about the future drafting, whatever the past drafting which has taken place. So
then only we have a remedy under section 32 and 56, I think, of the Indian Contract Act. That's the only thing which we will be left to.
Okay, Akhil, if silent is the consent in legal word, then what happens if the contract is silent? Because we say that if you are not saying anything, it means you are accepting. So I think
the same answer as the previous question.
Okay. So if a statement of fact and law gives the answer, why in such case party cannot take divergent view?
That is to me or to Deepika?
Both, anybody can give.
You just repeat the question once.
If silence is the consent in legal word, then what happens if the contract is silent? A statement of fact and law gives the answer. Why in such case party cannot take divergent view?
I do not agree that it's a universal principle that silence is a consent. And in any case, facts of the case has to be determined to make a view. So without actual facts, view cannot be shared.
Okay, Akhil.
See, silence again is not a consent, Pawan. I think silence is not a consent. So if there is no provision mentioned in the contract, does not mean that force majeure automatically applies.
Yes.
Then you will have to go to the particular law, like the Indian Contract Act in this particular case, which will apply.
Okay, Akhil, what is the fate of contract if force majeure continue for unreasonable long time, where performance become difficult? What are the remedies to party?
See, the remedy would be as mentioned in the contract, but unforeseen situation, it continues to operate. Force majeure event is very unlikely, and it will have to be proved that how it is continuing. It can only be continuing should there be a situation which is under a government order. If it is a government order or some regulatory authority which has completely barred that activity, then it will lead to a termination of a contract. Something which the parties can no longer perform will have to be then terminated, and the consequences of the contract will follow.
Okay, Deepika, in which case the concerned party had invoked force majeure clause with regard to payment obligation?
In which case?
In this standard retail versus GS.
Standard retail was yes. So what is the question?
No, the question is, you want to say anything about the standard retail versus GS Global case?
In this particular case, actually the counterparty had performed its part of obligation, that is delivery of the goods, and the steel company was wishing to not make payment because of the present situation. So court simply directed that the payment has to be made. You have to complete your obligation, and force majeure event will not stop you from complying with the present situation.
Okay, Akhil, does force majeure clause affect dishonor of check notice issued under section 138 of Negotiable Instrument Act? What is the remedy in such case?
Not at all. I think it's a separate code. Under 138, it's a criminal offense for dishonor of check. We can't say that, because of a force majeure situation, I was asked to issue a check, but I never had a balance. So how would you prove that?
Okay. Deepika, lease of residential premises. My tenant has not paid rent for last 4 months. Can I evict him on this ground? Few days ago, Maharashtra government grant an advisory not to evict tenant during COVID time.
So, sir, there have been advisories from various governments and taking a lenient view towards the tenants. But in such situations, we also have to see whether the parties have any contract, and whether non-payment of rent tantamounts to be eviction. If a contract is there, there's a provision, say if a tenant continues not to pay rent for 2 months, 3 months, whatever period, then eviction can be done. Then if your contracts provide for such a provision, then you can do the eviction. The advisories from the government has been towards the weaker section, mostly concentrated on the weaker section.
Okay.
They are advisories. Basically.
Okay. Akhil.
And Pawan, I would also like to say that, you know, there is a difference between a government order and an advisory.
Yes.
Upon what would be the binding nature between an advisory and a government order. So an advisory necessarily does not mean it is binding.
Okay. Akhil, if the apartment association insists for the full maintenance charge during the pandemic period, where such service may not have been provided, can we file a case that they cannot claim the entire amount during such period?
Yes, I think that should be, because the essence is when you are providing service, you pay and then you are paid. If you don't serve, you don't pay.
Yeah, that's right. So you can ask this because that is also why you are not providing, because of the labor, which are other things. So something which you are not providing, you can't ask money for that. Okay. Deepika, will tenant get any relief in case rent agreement contain force majeure clause?
Sir, if tenant is continuing to occupy the property, there may be a force majeure clause, but until the force majeure clause is defined in certain manner, that if there is a force majeure, the tenant will get a liberty not to make the payment, or the obligation to make the payment stand suspended for a period.
So you are saying specific point should be mentioned here.
Yes,
Okay.
the clause should be such drafted that there is a specific exemption there.
Okay. Akhil, what happened where force majeure clause is not envisaged in the contract and section 32 and 56 also cannot be applied?
Sorry, I missed the opening part to your question.
What happens where force majeure clause is not envisaged in the contract and section 32 and 56 also cannot be applied? Because somewhere you are mentioning, you are not mentioning force majeure, and section 32 and 56 is also not applied in that case. So what happened to this? And the COVID has come.
So to perform, there is doctrine of frustration which is applicable. So then it means that there is no force majeure agreement in the contract, and then you do not have, the doctrine of frustration also does not apply. That means you have to perform your obligation as per the contract.
Okay, that's right. Deepika, from where the contract can claim his loss or expenses amid COVID pandemic pursuant to government order to pay wages, salary to their labor and employee?
So Supreme Court in recent Ficus Pax Private Limited case has already directed this, and even the Home Ministry has revoked his order for compulsory payment of wages. So they have to seek relief thereunder.
Okay, Akhil, where force majeure can be implied in the contract, whether force majeure can be applied to the contract.
I think it can be implied.
Okay.
It cannot be implied. It has to.
Akhil, can non-performance of contract be a ground for termination of contract?
Absolutely. If you are not performing, that would lead to, that could providing the suffering party is willing to release you from that contract. So you may be. So if there are liquidated damages, all those will apply. The remedies of the contract will apply. You may be penalized if there are enough penal, civil penalties in the contract. Those will have to be invoked. But yes, if you do not perform the contract, the discharge, and then the remedies will apply.
Okay, Deepika, whether government order under Disaster Management Act prevented party from performing obligation under contract?
So it will depend upon the facts of the case, largely because government orders are very specific to the specific actions or to specific events. So we have to see the facts of the case, whether it will apply there or not.
Okay. Now I'll request, please be fast because we have few questions. So we have to be very quick. If it is proved that, Akhil, if it is proved that party is using COVID-19 situation to not honor its contractual obligation and has no intent as well, whether such act is punishable?
Punishable? No, it is a civil thing. You know, it's a civil contract. So,
So you could
not
take action.
not punishable, but the remedies of the contract will come. The
Okay.
Civil remedies. Yeah.
Deepika, whether lack of revenue due to force majeure event can be ground for abandonment of contract, and is there any other remedy available if all obligations have been paid?
It cannot, because of the lack of revenue, you cannot deny your performance. The remedies which are available is go for a renegotiation, or have a dialogue with your with the counterpart that how to meet your obligation, ask for time for meeting your obligation, but you cannot avoid your obligation merely because of lack of revenues.
Okay, Akhil, what is the importance of side letter while renegotiating contract?
See, side letter also to me is can be admitted as an evidence that, you know, it is a part of the contract. But you know, from a legal drafting point of view, I don't rely on side letters. I always ask that everything has been mentioned should be in a contract itself. So it may have a legal sanctity. It may have a legal. It is a very strong evidence to the case. But when you are doing a contract, those terms should be in the contract itself from a better enforcement point of view.
Okay, Deepika, what is the validity of contract being digitally signed?
Contract which is digitally signed is also recognized under India Contract Act. We have to also read it along with the Information Technologies Act, and they are perfectly valid contracts.
Okay, Akhil, what is the difference between force majeure and act of God, and what is covered under the act of God?
Force majeure is itself, you know, as you know, Deepika also mentioned, it is something which is a power from the above, you know. So I would read it as a force majeure event only. Whatever is, so we may have an we may have an illustrative list in the contract, but for example, many people have written in their force majeure contract as epidemic. They have not written pandemic. So pandemic to me also is an act of God, even though not written in the contract, but it will also, you know, you may also rely on it when you are claiming a force majeure release, even though not written in the contract.
Okay. Okay. Now, Deepika, do we need to have both the clause in the contract, force majeure and act of God?
Sir, force majeure is a wider term. Act of God is just one kind of a force majeure event. There can be other kind of force majeure events like strikes or like war, which is not act of God, but which is beyond control. So it is always beneficial to have an inclusive definition that act of God or any event which is beyond the control of the parties.
So force majeure can be any type of thing. Act of God is not, which is not in the hand
Act
of
of God. Act of God is just one kind of a force majeure event. There can be other. So it includes, act of God is included in force majeure.
Can be used interexchangely?
No.
Yes, we can.
Sorry,
no?
we have a disagreement. But yeah, to your point, Deepika, I was just saying interchangeably means that, as you rightly said, that it is force majeure is a broader term, which may also have strikes, lockouts. But you know, act of God is something which is a narrower interpretation. So
Right.
we cannot use them interchangeably simply for the fact that act of God is a narrower term and force majeure is a wider term.
I agree.
Okay. Will court accept act of God plea, Akhil?
At least in the movie Oh My God, we did hear that particular case, that act of God, earthquakes, maybe that plea may be accepted. And I think that was, you know, one particular actual case on which the film was made. So I would definitely feel so. Not because there was a film, but because of the situation.
Okay. Deepika, IBC provision is suspended. Is remedy available? What remedy available?
Parties can go in for the recovery proceedings which were otherwise available before the initiations of the IBC provisions.
Okay, Akhil, a very interesting question has come from one practicing company secretary firm. He's saying, I'm facing I have 2-3 private companies, and I have enter into retainership agreement. Because of that, I created a big infrastructure and team and other thing, and we have finalized the retainership fees also. Now, because of the COVID, they have suspended my retainership. What is the solution with me?
Um, so if they have suspended, so whatever fees is due, you can initiate recovery before the appropriate forum. But obviously, whatever I have invested, I may not be able to recover.
Okay. Okay, that is no, but he's saying that because of that I have invested. Now he has suspended, though he has told that I will take your services for 12 months, but after 3 months he's suspending.
Yeah, so it will depend upon the contract. If the person has written in the contract that I will invest say 1 crore in building my business, and you will ensure you will not terminate till 1 year before I recover my 1 crore, then it's a separate issue. But if it is a simple contract of services, then it may be very difficult to enforce that whatever investment you have made, you may not be able to recover that investment.
Okay, Deepika, whether a buyer can trigger FMC and terminate the contract on the ground if COVID situation is yet not over and the cash flow is almost dried, supply chain is disrupted, and the financial situation is very bad.
Sir, if your FMC clause, force majeure clause, provides for the termination of the contract, like I gave the examples of the various clauses of force majeure, and if there's the clause allows you to terminate in case of a force majeure situation, then you can terminate. If your clause says if your clause says that the performance will be suspended for a period of time, then you cannot terminate the contract. So we have to see the exact
Okay, Akhil,
drafting of the clause.
under FMC, where it's mentioned fees shall not be payable during the FMC event, can service provider raise payment obligation to clear the payment for already service provided?
No, so I'm presuming this is a contract for service, right, Pawan? So if it's a contract for service where there is a FMC, so and if the person has been genuinely impacted and the person proves why the person was not able to provide service, then the payment can be excused, because if you don't provide service, you will not be paid.
Okay, Deepika, can a customer seek extension of warranty and guarantee due to COVID-19? Customer has requested to extend the warranty for 1 year since they could not use our equipment. Please suggest.
So generally warranties and guarantees are not extendable, otherwise speaking, and again it will depend upon the terms, whether usable. I buy a product, whether I use it or not is not what your guarantee or warranty is subject to.
Okay, Akhil, what if the term force majeure is not defined in the agreement, but there is a clause which uses that term? Then how to interpret them?
No, I think it is substance over form. In
Okay.
that case, that even though it is, even if it is not specifically, the heading is not there, but if in substance the clause is there, it will be enforceable as an FMC.
Okay, Akhil, one more question I'm asking you. IPL was not possible in this year. If any of the owner of IPL team goes to court for damage, what can be ground for BCCI to avoid such damages?
BCCI will say this is not essential service.
Okay. What if the term force majeure is not defined in the agreement, but there is a clause which uses the term? Then how to? This is already done. Under the contract, does service provider or vendor are liable to any direct or indirect liabilities?
We have to see the contract, whether if on non-performance there is a penal provision or a provision which is causing for any liability. We have to see that.
Okay, Akhil, very interesting question has come for both. Today we are saying COVID is an act of God. Now tomorrow it is proved that it is a not act of God, it is a man-made act. Is there any situation will change?
I don't think so. It will change, because the fact remains it's a pandemic, as a result of which the performances of contracts have been restricted or curtailed. So whether it's a man-made or whether it's natural, it is immaterial in my view. It is the impact on your contract which is of more relevance.
I agree. It's an uncontrollable and beyond. It was an uncontrollable. It's not in my hand. So whether it's an act of God or it's man-made, but it was not. It was beyond my control.
Okay, Akhil, can a person sue China as COVID 2019 was born there and because of which he could not perform the obligation?
We have already started the legal process in Pangong.
Okay. 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 A few of our customers have requested to hold orders stating force majeure. They have not mentioned cancellation of order. They have mentioned to hold order processing till further instruction. What is the action suggested in this case? Deepika.
So even if your contract had a force majeure clause and there was a suspension, they can seek for the suspension of performance.
Okay.
So, and it is between the parties of the contract. It's good that it is not being terminated or they have not asked for the cancellation and only for the holding of the contract.
Okay, Akhil, recently Government of India has issued a SEZ notification mentioning waiver, reduction of rent for lease during COVID period for its tenancy and also encourage private sector developer also to follow suit. What are your views on the directive, whether it is recommendatory or mandatory?
If it is a government order, then perhaps we may have a view that because of that government order, we will have to make concessions. But if it is an advisory, it may be non-binding.
Okay, last 3 questions I will take up. If tender is awarded by government but agreement is not executed, but tender document does not have a format of a standard agreement, can FMC be triggered by the party to whom the tender is awarded? Deepika.
Sir, FMC clause is not an implied clause. It has to be expressly provided. So if the agreement is not executed and the standard agreement is also not there, then you cannot seek FMC clause.
Okay. Akhil, if the lease and license agreement has a force majeure clause and it provided that if due to pandemic, lockdown or other force majeure event, the licensed property becomes unfit for conducting operation or business, and where such force majeure event continue for 15 days, then the agreement shall be terminated automatically. My query is, force majeure can be said to cause the property becoming unfit for operating business, or should be read unfit only for a physical destruction of property?
See, I would say it will depend upon the length of the problem that you are suffering. If it is a earthquake, for example, which completely damages the premises, you may no longer be able to use it. So that will definitely lead to a termination of the contract. But if it is a pandemic situation where you come under a containment zone for say about a month or so, it's a temporary thing. And once that is over, you will be using your premises again. So the rent component, if so specified in the contract that due to pandemic, the rent will be suspended, which the courts have also said so. In that case, the rent may be not paid if the contract says so.
Okay, we have reviewed our lease rent agreement contract with the lessor on 19/7/2019 for a period of 5 years for the branch office premises at Noida. The renewed contract agreement stipulated lock-in period of 3 years, which was also existed in the original contract and fulfilled. Now, due to COVID, the management wants to close down operation in some area, including inter alia Noida. Is it possible for us to invoke Section 56 of the contract, terminate the lease rent agreement prior to lock-in period without any financial implication to us?
It cannot be done, sir. It's a temporary position. COVID-19 is a temporary position. Frustration cannot be invoked.
Akhil, I was asking the last question, but I have received 2-3 questions on the people have asked for the specific industry question. One has asked the hospitality, whether the cost for cancelled booking for event would be refundable in the light of COVID-19 pandemic.
I think it should be. It should be refunded, because if you are not able to host a particular event, there should be an obligation to refund.
But Akhil, there is airlines, they are saying you can travel that place again, or we are opening your ticket but I don't want to go to that place now because my work is will not take place there. So how the airlines can impose that you have to? I have booked a ticket for Bangalore, so I can't go Bangalore because the event is cancelled. So how they can compel me to go to Bangalore?
So if there has been, so if I cannot make that particular trip, so the terms of booking would determine how much cancellation charges the airline will levy. So that is also a contract. When you book a ticket, you enter into a contract, and those terms and conditions of the cancellation would then apply. And if the ticket booking condition was that should the particular airline were not allowed to fly by due to this government order, then the airline would take a plea that I will not refund because I was prevented from honoring my contract. So
Yes.
it will have to be seen from.
Okay. Now one question, because now Supreme Court is viewing that the EMI is extended, but they are saying that how to reduce the interest burden. So what is your view? Whether the government will accept this or they will reduce the interest?
See, it will depend upon the self-reliant India declaration that the Prime Minister has initiated, and what kind of relief the government wants to give. So it will be perhaps not a legal right, but some kind of a relief that the government would want to announce. So strictly from a point of view of a contract, whatever you have signed with your bank will apply. And if that says that in case of a pandemic, you are entitled to some relief in terms of the interest rates, only then you will be entitled to a relief from a contract standpoint.
In case the consumer have already bought the flat, will be able to cancel the flat and get the refund from builder, as due to COVID, he is not able to pay the amount?
Non-payment cannot be made an excuse. Pandemic cannot give you relief from non-payment. A contract is there. You have to meet out your contractual obligation until unless there is a specific carve-out provision in the contract which you can invoke. I do not agree that because of pandemic you can rescind the contract of your flat.
Okay. I think we have tried to give all the answer which we have received, and in case there is any answer, we will send that answer to the respective emails. So thank you, Akhil. Thank you, Deepika. It was nice presentation. Friends, the PPT will be mailed to you. The program's recording will be available on our website and the YouTube. All the questions which we have not answered, in case you can send it to us, we will give reply, and we will work out that how we can improve. We have asked the feedback also. So to improve our questions, please write your comments so we can improve. So Akhil, thank you very much for your nice interpretation.
I would like to say, Pawan, that I really enjoyed coffee with Pawan. The only thing which I did not enjoy that you did not give me the coffee hamper like a Karan Johar would give it.
So for the benefit of everybody, we are organizing on 24th the program on preferential allotment because SEBI has allowed 10% in place of 5%. So all the promoters can increase their holding, or they can take advantage of SEBI's this relaxation. That is on 24th. 26th, we are organizing a program on recovery. In place of now insolvency law is suspended. So what are the remedy available for the corporate for recovery? And after that, we are organizing 3 programs on insider trading and best time for the deal and the family settlement. What are the issues in family settlement? These are the 3 programs lined up. Corporate professional is trying all the burning issues and all the issues which are relevant to the corporate and where they require some burning topics that we want to do it. So in all these 5 programs which I have announced, that will be happen 2 programs in the next week, because preferential allotment is recently SEBI has given. So we will hopeful that all it will be useful for all of you. You can come. We will try to give the answer of all your queries relating to this. So thank you very much all participants for patient listening of this program, and thank you very much Akhil. Thank you very much Deepika for doing the excellent answer for all the things. Friends, all the participants, any question is unanswered or you have not asked, send an email to us. We will give reply to you. and we will send the reply to your email. Thank you very much. Thanks everyone for participating. Thank you.